The sun set over the distant planet of Zeros, casting a cold, eerie glow on the ruins of an ancient civilization. Human relic hunter Jason Cade stepped carefully through the decaying city. His boots crunched against the dry earth as his flashlight scanned the darkening landscape. He had been searching for this place for months, and now, standing in its heart, he could almost feel the weight of history pressing against him. Jason had heard the stories. The tales told of a relic so powerful it could change everything. The ancient texts had warned of its calling a hum, a pull, something that resonated deep inside a person's mind. Most of the galaxy dismissed the stories as myths, but Jason knew better. He had seen things that didn't make sense, things that suggested humanity's true potential had been hidden long ago. This relic, if it existed, might be the key to unlocking that potential. He continued down the broken path, his senses on high alert. Something felt different today, unnerving. A vibration, almost like a whisper, tickled the back of his neck. It wasn't just the wind. The relic was calling to him. His hand gripped the map tightly, the ancient parchment already beginning to decay at the edges. According to his calculations, the relic was close. A small clearing appeared before him, and in the center, a stone pedestal stood, encased in what looked like an ancient force field. It shimmered faintly in the dim light. Jason approached the pedestal cautiously, his breath coming faster now. There, atop the stone, sat the relic, small but gleaming with an energy that seemed to pulse. It was a crystalline object, shaped like a teardrop, with strange symbols etched into its surface. The relic seemed to hum louder, the sound vibrating through his chest. He couldn't explain it, but it felt alive. His fingers reached out, trembling slightly. As his hand touched the relic, a surge of energy shot through him, and his vision blurred. He staggered back, falling to his knees. His head spun, as if the very air had turned heavy. A voice echoed inside his mind, low and urgent. "You have found it. Humanity is not forgotten. Do not let them take it." Jason gasped for air, struggling to make sense of what just happened. The voice was gone, leaving only the hum of the relic behind. Slowly, he stood and tried to steady himself. He had to focus. The relic was more than just an artifact. It was a key. A key to something much larger. But what was it guarding? What had it meant by them? Suddenly, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He wasn't alone. He turned just in time to see movement in the shadows. Figures. Tall, cloaked in darkness, and moving toward him at an unsettling speed. His heart raced. Alien mercenaries. They were here for the relic, and they wouldn't hesitate to kill him to get it. Jason's mind raced. He grabbed the relic, slipping it into a hidden compartment in his suit. He had to get out of there, but these mercenaries were trained, highly trained. He wasn't going to outrun them. There was only one chance. He reached for the detonator on his belt. The ground beneath him rumbled suddenly, and a loud crack split the air. Jason spun around, his eyes widening in shock. The force field surrounding the pedestal was flickering, destabilizing. The relic's hum grew louder, as if reacting to the presence of the mercenaries. The mercenaries paused. They were just as stunned as he was, watching the relic's energy crackle around them. Jason knew this was his moment. He dashed toward the entrance of the ruined city, hearing the mercenaries' footsteps behind him. The relic's power surged again. A bright light shot out from the pedestal, bathing the entire clearing in a blinding glow. Jason's vision was lost in the brilliance, but he didn't stop running. He had no choice. He neared the edge of the city. Jason risked a glance behind him. The mercenaries were still coming, their guns drawn. But something had changed. The air around them was warping. The relic's power was creating ripples, distorting time and space. Jason reached the narrow passage leading into the deeper ruins. He took a sharp turn, hoping to lose them in the winding alleyways. His heart was pounding, his mind racing, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the relic had more in store for him than just a narrow escape. Then, as if it was calling to him again, the voice returned. "You cannot run from your destiny. It is already written." Jason stopped dead in his tracks. He turned back, staring into the shadows. The mercenaries were close, but the voice, the power of the relic it felt. Different now. It wasn't just a whisper, it was an order. Without thinking, he raised the relic, holding it up toward the sky. The ground beneath him trembled as the power of the relic surged through him once more. He felt it deep within his soul and awakening. The relic wasn't just an object. It was a guide, and it was calling him for a reason. The mercenaries hesitated. The energy in the air was shifting, growing more intense by the second. Jason took a deep breath and understood what he had to do. The relic was part of something far greater. It wasn't just humanity's key to survival, it was humanity's future. And no matter what, he couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands. With newfound determination, Jason Cade ran toward the heart of the ruins. The hunt for the relic was far from over, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't alone in this fight anymore. The forgotten city lay buried beneath centuries of dust. Its once glorious spires had crumbled into ruins, hidden from the rest of the galaxy for ages. But for Jason Cade, the relic hunter, this was a treasure waiting to be unearthed. Armed with his maps and a steady hand, he ventured deeper into the planet's dark forests, determined to find what others had failed to uncover. The dense jungle around him seemed alive, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Giant trees loomed overhead, their twisted branches reaching out like grasping fingers. Jason adjusted his pack and pushed forward. His mission was simple: find the artifact said to be hidden in the heart of the city. What he didn't know was that this city was hiding something much more dangerous than any relic. As he reached the edge of the ruins, the ground grew colder, and an eerie silence settled over him. There were no birds, no sounds of wildlife, nothing. It was as if the very air had been sucked out of the place. Jason paused, scanning the area. The city was more than just abandoned, it felt watched. His flashlight flickered across the ancient walls, revealing carvings in a language long lost. Some of the symbols seemed to shimmer, almost as if they were alive. Jason frowned. This city was far older than anything he'd encountered before, but his training told him not to linger on what he didn't understand. He needed to keep moving. It didn't take long before he found the entrance, an archway half covered in moss and vines, its stone etched with the same strange symbols. As he stepped through the arch, a cold wind swept across his face, carrying with it a scent of decay. He shivered but pushed forward, the promise of the artifact pulling him deeper into the shadows. Inside, the city was a maze of narrow streets and crumbling buildings. Despite the destruction, Jason could see hints of the city's former grandeur: massive columns, intricate statues, and wide plazas. But there was something unsettling about it all. Every corner seemed darker, every shadow a little longer than it should have been. Jason kept his hand on the hilt of his weapon, ready for whatever might be lurking in the depths of the forgotten city. As he walked through the streets, he began to notice something strange. The ground beneath his feet was warmer, the air thicker. It was subtle at first, but it grew stronger with each step. Jason's instincts kicked in. He was getting closer to the relic. But why did the temperature rise as he neared the center of the city? A sudden movement caught his eye. He spun around, his heart racing. Nothing. Just the shadows stretching across the walls. But he wasn't alone. Jason could feel it. His flashlight beam landed on a small stone pedestal in the center of a square. On it lay a relic, just as the old texts had described. It was a sphere, glowing faintly with a light that seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. Jason took a cautious step forward, his hand reaching for it. But before he could touch it, a loud crack echoed through the square. Jason froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He turned slowly, his eyes scanning the area. From the darkness, figures emerged, tall, cloaked in shadows, their faces hidden beneath hoods. Jason's breath caught in his throat. They were not human. The creatures moved like phantoms, gliding toward him with inhuman speed. Jason's instincts screamed at him to run, but his legs felt frozen in place. One of the figures spoke, its voice low and raspy. "You should not have come here." Jason's mind raced. These beings were clearly ancient, and from their appearance, they seemed to be the protectors of the city, or the ones who had remained behind to guard its secrets. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Jason replied, his voice steady. I just need the artifact. The figure tilted its head, and for a moment Jason swore he saw a flicker of something curiosity. Disgust? It was hard to tell. The figure's hand shot out, and a dark energy crackled through the air. Jason's body jerked, and for a moment everything went black. When his vision cleared, he found himself standing in a different place, still inside the city, but somewhere deeper. The architecture was more intricate here, and the air was thick with the smell of ancient incense. The relic was now in the center of the room, glowing even brighter than before. What is this place? Jason muttered to himself, his mind still reeling from the strange force that had pulled him here. A voice echoed from the shadows, colder than ice. This is the heart of the city, where time itself bends. Jason turned sharply. The figures know. The guardians were surrounding him now, their eyes glowing with the same faint light as the relic. They had brought him here for a reason. The relic is not what you think, the voice continued. It is not just a key, it is a prison. And you have just unlocked it. Jason's blood ran cold. The ground trembled beneath him as a deep, ancient roar echoed through the city. The walls began to crack, and from the shadows, something massive stirred something old and powerful. The relic was not a tool. It was a warning. As the shadows closed in around him, Jason realized the true cost of his discovery. The city had not been abandoned. It had been sealed away for a reason. And now it was awake. The galaxy had long forgotten the power of humanity. To the rest of the universe, humans were a distant memory, a species once feared, now lost to time. But for Jason Cade, the last of humanity's relic hunters, the hunt for an ancient weapon was far from over. Jason's heart raced as he navigated the dark corridors of the abandoned station on Zera 6. The station had been a place of legend, where humans had once perfected a weapon of unimaginable power before their downfall. The data he had found suggested that the weapon was still there, hidden deep within the station, waiting for someone to unlock its secrets. As he entered the central chamber, the air grew colder, and the silence became almost unbearable. His flashlight flickered against the walls, revealing faded marking symbols he had seen before in old texts. They were the language of humanity's greatest engineers, the last remnants of a lost civilization. But what had they created here? What kind of weapon could hide for so long? Forgotten by everyone? Jason continued to move forward, his senses on high alert. He knew he wasn't alone. The station was still active in some ways, powered by ancient systems that hummed faintly in the background. And there were rumors that other forces were also hunting for the weapon. Alien factions who would stop at nothing to control it. His steps echoed in the quiet, growing louder as he approached the heart of the station. Then he saw it. The chamber opened into a vast room, its walls lined with strange glowing panels. In the center stood a pedestal, and atop it. It wasn't much to look at, a simple, blackened object, shaped like a sphere, surrounded by shimmering energy. But Jason felt its power immediately, a tingling sensation crawling up his spine. This was it, the last human weapon, capable of wiping out entire fleets with a single strike. But as he moved closer, a voice filled the room. Low, metallic, and cold. Human, you should not have come. Jason froze, his heart skipping a beat. He turned slowly, his eyes scanning the shadows. There was no one there. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. It was as though the station itself was speaking to him. I came for the weapon, Jason said, his voice steady, though he could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. I need it to protect humanity. The voice laughed, a dry, hollow sound that sent chills down his spine. Protect humanity? You do not understand what you have found. The voice was softer now, almost pitying. This weapon is not a tool for protection. It is the end. Jason stepped forward, ignoring the warning in the voice. He reached for the weapon, his fingers brushing the energy field around it. For a moment, nothing happened. But then, with a sudden flash of light, the pedestal began to crack. The walls shook, and the air became charged with an unnatural energy. Jason backed away, eyes wide. The voice returned, now tinged with urgency. Do not activate it. You cannot control it. But Jason was already too late. The energy from the weapon surged outward, enveloping him. The room around him blurred, and the world seemed to bend in on itself. The weapon had activated, and with it, a deep, vibrating hum that seemed to reach into his very bones. I in the distance, the sound of footsteps approached. Heavy, deliberate. Jason looked up, his vision still spinning from the power of the weapon, and saw figures moving toward him. They were not human. Tall, armored, and unmistakably alien. The bounty hunters had found him. "Give it to us, human," one of the aliens growled, his voice filled with malice. "The weapon belongs to us." Jason stood tall, despite the dizziness, the weight of the weapon's power still surging within him. He wasn't about to give up the weapon now, not after coming so far. He had no choice. Humanity's survival depended on it. He raised the weapon, his hands shaking. The aliens took a step back, fear flashing in their eyes. "You don't understand," Jason said, his voice low. "This weapon isn't just for destroying. It's a symbol of what humanity was capable of, what we can still be. I won't let you take it." The aliens lunged, but in the moment they moved, the weapon's energy flared. A burst of light shot from the sphere, striking one of the aliens square in the chest. It disintegrated instantly, the alien's body turning to dust in an instant. The others hesitated, shocked by the sudden display of power. Jason's heart pounded in his chest, his breath coming in short gasps. The weapon had only begun to show its true power. It was capable of destroying anything in its path, but it was also tied to Jason in a way he couldn't explain. The power thrummed inside him, as if it had chosen him. But what did it want? What was it preparing him for? The aliens gathered themselves, realizing they couldn't fight the weapon head-on. They retreated into the shadows, whispering among themselves in their alien tongue. Jason stood there, the weight of the situation hitting him all at once. The weapon was his now, and so was the responsibility. He had activated it, and with it, the fate of humanity rested in his hands. Would he use it to fight back against the galaxy's enemies? Or would he fall to the very power that had been hidden away for so long? As the station began to tremble and the power surged through him, Jason made a decision. He would take humanity's last weapon and use it to reclaim their place in the stars. But he would have to be careful, because such power came with a cost that might be too much to bear. The galaxy was at peace, or so it seemed. Across the vast stretches of space, countless civilizations coexisted in relative harmony. But beneath the surface, hidden from the eyes of the public, a war was raging. A war fought in the shadows, far away from the prying eyes of the universe. Jason Cade, a veteran of countless skirmishes, had heard whispers of this secret war. He had always been a relic hunter, seeking out ancient technologies, but something had changed. He felt it. There was a shift in the air, a growing tension. It was as if the universe itself was holding its breath. One quiet evening, while tracking an artifact on a distant moon, Jason received an encrypted message. The transmission was brief, just a series of coordinates and a single line of text. "Meet us on Veros 4. The war is closer than you think." Jason's instincts told him this wasn't just another treasure hunt. Something was happening, something far bigger than anything he'd ever encountered before. He gathered his gear and set a course for Veros 4. A remote planet located on the fringes of known space. When he arrived, the planet seemed lifeless, its surface covered in barren deserts and rocky canyons. There was no sign of the civilization that had once called it home. But as he descended into the planet's atmosphere, his ship's sensors began to pick up unusual readings, disturbances in the electromagnetic field. Someone or something was hiding here. Jason landed his ship near the coordinates, stepping out into the dusty winds of Veros 4. His boots kicked up clouds of sand as he moved toward an old mining facility, the only structure still standing on the planet. The door creaked open as he approached, and inside, he found a group of shadowy figures waiting for him. "You came," one of them said, stepping forward. It was a woman, her face hidden behind a mask. Her eyes were cold, calculating. "Who are you?" Jason asked, his hand resting on the weapon at his side. He was trained to trust no one. "We are the resistance," the woman replied. "The ones fighting the war you've never heard of?" Jason raised an eyebrow. "The war I've never heard of?" She nodded. "The war that's been happening in the shadows. The war between the factions that control the galaxy's power. You've been living in peace, but there's always been more to it. You've been kept in the dark." Jason frowned. He had known about conflicts between different factions, pirates, mercenaries, and the like, but this sounded different. "Real. What do you need from me?" he asked, his voice cautious. "The war is about to escalate," the woman said. "We need you to help us stop it before it spills into the open. There are forces working behind the scenes forces that have manipulated entire star systems. They've been using advanced technology to create chaos, and now they're ready to make their move." Jason's mind raced. Advanced technology? Chaos? This was more than just a fight for power. This was about control of the very fabric of the galaxy. "The factions have kept the public blind," the woman continued. "They believe the galaxy is at peace. But that's a lie. We need someone like you to get us the weapons we need to strike back." Jason hesitated. He wasn't a soldier, but he had seen enough to know when things were about to get ugly. The woman's words rang in his ears. The secret war was real, and if it wasn't stopped, everything he knew could be torn apart. "I'll help you," Jason said finally, his voice steady. "But where do we start?" The woman smiled, though her eyes were filled with something darker. "We start by finding the source of their power. It's hidden, deep in the heart of the galaxy. A weapon that could destroy entire fleets more powerful than anything you've ever seen." Jason's pulse quickened. A weapon like that could change everything. In the wrong hands, it could bring the galaxy to its knees. The woman handed him a small metallic device. "This will guide you. We've already tracked the weapon's energy signature to a hidden base on the edge of the Orcs Nebula. You must go there, find it, and destroy it." Without another word, Jason took the device and left the mining facility. The night was cold, the stars above him distant and unmoving. As he boarded his ship and set the coordinates, he couldn't help but feel the weight of what he was about to do. The war was real, and it was coming for everyone. Hours passed as Jason navigated through the dark void of space, the Orcs Nebula looming ahead. His ship's sensors detected the hidden base, nestled within a dense cluster of asteroids. The nebula's interference made it difficult to see anything clearly, but Jason's experience told him the base was there. He could feel it. He approached the base cautiously, his ship's stealth mode engaged. But as he drew closer, an alarm blared. Turrets fired, sending blasts of energy toward him. Jason swerved his ship, narrowly avoiding the incoming fire. "This won't be easy," he muttered to himself. But he was determined. He had to stop this weapon from being unleashed on the galaxy. Jason's ship dodged and weaved through the asteroid field, taking out the turrets one by one with precise shots. As he neared the base, he activated the docking clamp and made his way inside. What he found shocked him. The base was filled with soldiers, all armed with advanced weaponry. And in the center of it all stood a massive structure, a machine unlike anything he had ever seen. It hummed with energy, its purpose clear. It was the weapon. Jason knew what he had to do. But as he approached, the machine flickered to life, its systems recognizing his presence. The walls around him shook, and a deep voice boomed. "You are too late." The secret war was no longer just a myth. It had become Jason's reality. And now, the fate of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, where the light of stars barely touched the cold void, a long-forgotten empire once stood. Its name was whispered in legends, its power unmatched, its riches beyond imagination. But it fell, its people scattered, its cities reduced to ruins. Only echoes of its once great civilization remained until now. Jason Cade had always sought the lost and the forgotten. A relic hunter by trade, he had uncovered ancient ruins on countless worlds, but nothing had prepared him for what he was about to discover. The message came in a dream, an ancient call from a long-lost world. "Find the heart of the empire. You will awaken what has been sleeping." Jason had heard rumors about the Empire, the Erythian Dominion, a race of beings so advanced that their technology seemed more like magic. But no one knew what had truly happened to them. Their civilization was gone, their cities swallowed by time and decay. Jason's curiosity was piqued, and he set his course for Erythia 7, a barren planet on the edge of the galaxy. When he landed, the atmosphere was thick with the scent of dust and old metal. The planet's surface was cracked, riddled with canyons and ancient ruins. As Jason stepped out of his ship, he could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. Somewhere, deep within the forgotten ruins, the heart of the Empire waited. Jason's boots crunched against the ground as he made his way through the ruins. Towering stone structures loomed overhead, covered in strange symbols that pulsed faintly with energy. His scanner picked up faint power signatures, but nothing concrete. It was as if the planet itself was hiding its secrets from him. He paused at the entrance of a massive temple, its stone doors cracked but still standing. The air around it was heavy, charged with an eerie silence. Jason took a deep breath and stepped inside. The inside of the temple was vast, stretching far beyond what the outside had suggested. The walls were lined with alien murals, depicting scenes of grandeur, of powerful beings bending the stars to their will. But there was something strange about the images, something unsettling. In the center of the room, a massive stone pedestal stood, and on it, a sphere of dark energy pulsed slowly, as if breathing. Jason felt drawn to it, his hand trembling as he reached out. The moment his fingers brushed against the surface of the sphere, a sharp pulse of energy surged through him. His vision blurred, and he staggered back, barely able to keep his balance. His mind was filled with strange images, visions of the Empire at its height, of fleets of ships that filled the sky, of people kneeling before a dark, twisted ruler. The images faded, and Jason found himself kneeling on the floor, gasping for air. What was that? He had seen their fall, but why now? Why was it calling to him? A voice echoed in the darkness, cold and distant. You should not have come. Jason's heart pounded in his chest. He rose to his feet, scanning the room. Who's there? He called out, but the voice didn't answer. Instead, the walls began to shift, the stone moving as if alive. From the shadows, figures emerged tall, cloaked in tattered robes, their faces hidden. They moved like ghosts, their footsteps silent. You have awakened it, one of them said, its voice a mere whisper. You've unleashed the heart of the Erythian Empire. Jason's pulse quickened. What is this thing? What happened to the Empire? The figure stepped closer, its face still hidden beneath the hood. The Empire was destroyed by its own hubris, it said, its voice dripping with bitterness. The heart you've awakened was not meant to be a weapon. It was a prison. The ruler of the Erythians, the one who brought about their fall, is sealed inside. Jason felt a chill run down his spine. A prison? What's inside the heart? He asked, barely able to get the words out. The ruler of the Erythians, the figure replied, the one who sought to bend the stars to his will. He was too powerful, too dangerous. So they locked him away, deep within the heart. But now he is free. Jason's mind raced. The ruler of the Erythians, trapped inside this sphere for centuries. And now he was free, walking among them again. The implications were terrifying. You have to stop him, the figure whispered urgently. We failed, but only you can destroy the heart and end this madness. Jason looked back at the sphere. The dark energy pulsed in time with his heartbeat, as if the ruler was trying to reach out to him, to make him one with the power. But Jason had no intention of becoming a puppet for a fallen empire. He turned to face the cloaked figures. How do I stop it? He demanded. The heart has a weakness, the figure replied. But you must act quickly. The longer you wait, the stronger he becomes. Without another word, Jason moved toward the pedestal, his mind focused, determined. He didn't know what kind of weapon or tool could destroy something like this, but he couldn't afford to fail. The fate of the galaxy depended on it. He reached out for the sphere again. The ground trembled beneath his feet. The air thickened, charged with dark energy. A deep voice boomed in his mind, cold and filled with fury. You dare to defy me? Jason's hand clenched around the sphere. He wasn't just facing an ancient power. He was facing the legacy of an empire that had destroyed itself, and now its greatest mistake was coming for him. The heart began to crack, the power inside it surging violently. Jason braced himself, knowing that the fate of the galaxy rested on the choices he made in the next few moments.